Welcome, brothers and sisters. This is Will Keller with WillTellTruth.com. Thank you for joining. Will Tell Truth is activating willpower to seek and speak objective truth under natural law. And today I have a lovely guest joining me on this conversation, Anjali Romaniuk, and her website is sistersofsovereignty.com. Anjali is a spiritual mentor, a writer, yoga and meditation teacher, and of course, a natural law teacher. She's assisting women in their potent transformation to connect back with their true self and restore their power. How you doing, Anjali?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good.
Happy to
Exciting.
be here.
It's been busy, and we went to a rally yesterday to pass out some natural law information, and it was crazy and weird and fun. So
Sweet.
yeah, absolutely. So I always like to kind of jump it off and get your take of natural law. I think that's a good question for people, so we can get different perspectives. It's obviously a journey, and we have deeper understandings. So it's good to kind of get just your take on, and you could dive into the self realization of coming to the understanding of natural law, and yeah, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, natural law is bottom line. It's that which governs human consequences. And from that, like my understanding of natural law is that like the seeds that we sow, right? The seeds that we plant, like that's what we're going to essentially create in all of our lives and all of our reality. So it works on a very interpersonal level between who we are as individuals and who we are as a collective. And that's why it's such an important thing for us to understand as each individual human is that we're playing a massive role in everything that's showing up into our world, into our own personal realities, and essentially like we're not really victims to anything if we're the core curators of our lives and of that which we experience every single day, right?
Yeah,
So like that's like such a powerful thing on its own because it takes you from like this victim mentality into like full empowerment. I'm in charge of my life, like I'm in charge of that which I create and that which is like brought to me because this is my life. And that's
absolutely.
like a beautiful thing to come to an understanding of. So my discovery of natural law was actually brought to me by my partner. And at first, like I had a lot of issues. Of course, like I already knew like some core things about like the law of attraction, and I knew what karma was. I grew up in a household. My parents were like on the border of like spiritual consciousness. So I was very used to hearing the words like spirituality and karma and those types of things. But what really opened a lot of doors for me was understanding the actual true meaning of freedom and understanding how authority works and how I already had some initial like take backs towards government. I knew it wasn't helping us. I knew it wasn't for us. I knew it wasn't good for us, but I still had that feeling of like, oh, but we need it. Like we
Yeah,
need it to some degree. And now I understand that, with personal responsibility involved, like deeply, each human being can take like we are supposed to be taking care of ourselves and we're supposed to be taking care of each other.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Oh, well said. I'll just interject right there. You said some awesome key words, and responsibility. And that's kind of, when you come to an understanding, especially what freedom is, and how the law of freedom and how we can get to point A to point B, responsibility is a big topic.
Mhm.
And even in your individual life, you can start taking your power back and facing your responsibility. and putting that into play and contributing to being the co-creator of society and mainly the creator of your life.
Yeah,
That's really
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, and like what responsibility is, like it's a, like it's a responsibility, and I feel that it's a deep endeavor for a lot of people to walk into, because it asks you to step up in your life and to pay attention to what you're doing, right? And a lot of the time it's blissful ignorance. Like, we naturally enjoy not to be in charge of ourselves, even though there's this deep core desire to be the responsible one, to be in charge.
Yeah, it's so easy to kind of externalize um, issues, externalize your power. And I remember when I was first getting into the law of attraction, like The Secret and The Power, Rhonda Burns and that kind of stuff, the one thing that was missing was the larger picture of responsibility, that we're co-creators, and it's not just about your subjective perception. So and that kind of leads to, well, first I have to ask you too. So that's awesome. Your partner brought this information to you and stuff, and that's really cool. And I get this a lot. It's tough kind of waking up and understanding this kind of information, especially implementing in your life and being in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Can we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, go for it. Can you just touch on the influence of the information for your relationship? Because sometimes when one person comes to an understanding and actually does the self work, the shadow work, you can split and part ways, and that can be pretty brutal in a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the most important role in a relationship when you're committed to doing your work is remembering that, like, it's your work, and not to project on your partner, right? Because they're
Mm,
not always going to be exactly where you're at when you want them to be there, but it's giving them the space and time to come to their own realizations. And the same way you try to share information with anyone, right? You can't force something down their throats. You have to present the information to them, allow them to take it in, and either they're going to be open minded, like truly open minded, and look at it objectively without their own, internal belief systems, or they're not. And it's like, what do we do when that that starts butting heads, like when we're in a partnership and it's not cohesive and we're not on the same track together, right? That's when we have to make a choice. But thankfully, like, my partner and I, we were very open with our communication. We give each other space and time to really ingest things. We don't push things on each other, and I think that's a really important and key thing to integrate in your relationship with someone.
yeah, that's real powerful. As far as my knowledge, your partner's also a teacher of natural law, doing great work, and you
Mhm.
guys are like the dynamic duo in this relationship. Both getting the teachings and the information of natural law out there. That's really powerful. You guys can kind of motivate each other and get the momentum of energy going in all kinds of creative ways. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, yeah, from my experience in being in a relationship and having the ups and downs, you're right. You can't force anything on anybody.
Mhm.
Um, the best way to do it is kind of lead by example. And if it gets really rough, yes, there's a choice there. But being the change, that cliche quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. But yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, because it's a tough time right now. I know when I talk to people, relationships are up and down, especially what's going on in the world. It's a microcosm of the macro. So as there's friction and bumps in society, there's going to be in our personal lives as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, definitely. All right, cool. So let's get into your website, sistersofsovereignty.com. You want to tell us a little bit about that, the goals and
Yeah.
aspirations and the
So
information?
our essential, like our mission statement, well, I say our, but it's me. My mission statement is to really empower women to take charge of their lives, to begin to cultivate their inner courage and their inner strength that has been lost or forgotten about or suppressed. And to work through their inner shadows and their, you know, their inner baggage, in order for them to expand, like spiritually, emotionally, internally, externally, so they can really come into this place where they're living in their authenticity, and they're really using their specific gifts in order to live their lives, you know.
Yeah.
And with women, I found that, you know, like we weren't necessarily like taught to stand up for ourselves. At least like I wasn't. We weren't taught to like stand up for ourselves or to, you know, go do what we really wanted in life, and nobody was actually told that. So I think it's really important for women to understand that, like, they have a very specific role in like the healing of the collective within healing themselves as an individual human. And that's where we're really going to start to see change, right? Is when
Yeah.
we start to integrate all of these tools, all of this knowledge into our own lives, and then see how it starts to change in the external world.
Yeah, that's so, yeah, that's powerful. It really is, healing is a huge step of it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on and talk about this, is to promote the feminine dynamic. I think in our movement towards, you know, teaching and understanding natural law for the pursuit of true freedom,
Mhm.
the female dynamic is plays an integral role, and it's really important.
Yeah.
Um, let's get into a little bit of the, like, the shadow work for the feminine side, you know, that you've dealt with.
Yeah. I think a huge part of the feminine shadow work is like learning how to use our voice and learning how to actually speak up for something, learning how to say no, learning where our boundaries are. Because essentially, you know, we haven't really been taught how to establish boundaries in our lives.
Mm,
Therefore, we get walked all over all the time, or we accept things that aren't really in our, you know, our value system or within our principles. And this, I find that this bleeds into a lot with like people pleasing and just doing things to be liked and doing things to be loved, and like staying with the wrong partner because we just want to feel love, or staying in the right job, like staying in the wrong job because we just want that security.
mm,
And what happens there is like we forfeit all of our natural callings, like all of the truth that lives within our bones starts to sink beneath the surface and gets pushed way down to the point where we actually become extremely miserable and comfortably miserable, to the point where we don't want to move anymore because there's so much fear of like what will happen when we move. And in my own like personal experience, because I only teach through experience, right? Things that I've gone through in my own personal life. Part of learning how to speak up about things that are happening in the world and things that are wrong, or you know, jobs or relationships that I was in that were not really, you know, holding me to my highest, was that you have to put yourself on that really uncomfortable, shaky line of being like, okay, I might lose everything, I might get fired from my job, my partner might leave me, like I might lose 100 friends if I say this, but I have to do it anyway. And from that action comes, so like bears so many fruits, and you start to see yourself evolve as you take more actions, like courageously and authentically, and aligned.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you step on that path, the momentum of energy, being the witness and observing yourself, stepping on the path. It's obvious, especially when you're in that right mindset to observe and to receive.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's really powerful. Um, and you're right, in today's society, there's conditioning and programming on both sides, the male and the female aspect. And the female aspect definitely takes a hard emotional brunt of the conditioning and the programming. So stepping coming into yourself, into your power, is a huge step,
Yeah.
especially in the cultural dynamics. So yeah, let's go to inauthentic and authentic, and I
Yeah.
can like kind of define that if you like, but just when you're in your authentic self, it snowballs. And this
Mhm.
can be on both sides, and it's just piling on top of you and on top of you. It's a weight that it's really hard to get off, and the more you go deeper into that, the more the shadow work builds up, and the deeper that you have to go and have to face the hard demons in the mirror. But
Yeah. Yeah. So, in authentic feminine expressions, are things like, being very over emotional to the point where we're not aware of our emotions, or being very manipulative, whether that's emotionally manipulative or being sexually manipulative. And these show up a lot, right? And it's very unconscious behavior, so we can express it without even understanding it. A lot of the inauthentic feminine is also always, like, bashing the masculine. And
like neo-feminism, that's just, yeah,
yeah,
it's for sure.
very much. And when we as women, like, only because our culture has like imprinted this into our minds, when we only see ourselves like as a sex symbol, and when we're only relating with our bodies, we're losing so much of our other like core powers that come from our creativity and our ability to be empathetic and our ability to be compassionate and our ability to be watery and flowy and creative, and all of these different like amazing gifts that we lose sight of because we're just so fixated on all of these materialistic, very superficial things. So when we start to integrate into like empowered feminine energy, I find that like one of the most important things that we actually have to look at is, where in our lives are we actually rejecting our feminine energy? So like where is that coming from in relation to other women? Like, how do we reject other women, and how does that reflect back on how we reject ourselves, and how we reject the masculine, how we reject other like strong masculine figures, and where we reject the masculine in ourselves? Like, where do we not allow ourselves to set boundaries again? Like, where do we not allow ourselves to actually fully experience all of our emotions without judging ourselves and being harsh on ourselves? Those are really important things that we have to look at, that are really uncomfortable. What was our
Hmm.
relationship to our dad? How has that shaped our life? Like,
Yeah.
what is our relationship to our mom? How has that shaped our life? And these are really challenging topics to go into, and that's why it's powerful to do this type of work in community. So one, that you're not alone, and two, you're held in this space where it's like, it's okay if you feel this way, but let's move through it. Let's move forward so you can have a deeper, more collaborative understanding of how these two energies work cohesively together and feed one another.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I have a 7-year-old girl daughter, and she's the light of my life. And I I focus, she allows me to do my own shadow work deeper, right? Because I know that my influence on her is going to kind of set some of the foundation of, her future, either relationships or self-value, self-respect, self-perception, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So it's important for men, especially fathers, to really also do that shadow work and step into that role. I mean, it's important. I mean, everyone has to do the shadow work. It's a must. It's just a point if you're going to actually get there and have the courage to, and the power to do that. Um, so it's the role for women to kind of to do this shadow work to regain their power can lead men, I think,
Mhm.
especially in this movement. There's a strength of saying no and not condoning immoral behavior. And so much we see, for instance, the police and the military, women supporting those type of actions or just immoral behavior in general.
Yeah.
Um, so my question is, what? Let me look at my notes. I keep forgetting. I got my whole outline right here. Oh, the sacred feminine. Okay, we did that. What are some of the qualities when you step into your path, and some of the pitfalls?
Mm, yeah. Well, the qualities is that you're leveling up spiritually, right? You're able to observe more, you're able to observe yourself more, you're able to recognize what's happening outside of you more, and instead of reacting to everything, you're able to like take a breath and take a moment and then choose mindfully how you want to react to a situation or if you need to take time for yourself. The
Hmm.
pitfalls, however, is that when we're going through like a healing process, when we're doing deep shadow work, sometimes we have this expectation that it's like a one and done thing. And that's like rarely the case in our healing experiences. We have to meet things over and over and over and over and over again. And one of the questions that I actually posed in a group last week was like, do we ever actually heal our wounds, or do we just get really acquainted with them to the point where we meet that wound and we've met it so many times that now we know not to feed it. Now we know to like meet it with something more compassionate, you know?
Yeah.
And like that's one of the biggest things that we have to keep in mind is that like we are imperfect humans. We are imperfect humans, and we're not going to like be able to acknowledge our faults all the time when they happen instantaneously, but we can be accountable for them. We can hold ourselves to a high responsible place of, acknowledging if we uh, if we said something to someone or if we projected to someone, we can take accountability for that.
Yeah.
And also it's a draining process. And something that I think is really important to know when you're going through your interpersonal healing journey is to take it off in bites. Sometimes
Mm.
we take off way more than we can handle, and we get so overwhelmed and so overstimulated. We're facing all of this trauma at once that we just go into this psychic, like depression. Like
Yeah.
we
Burnout.
yeah, we completely just want to sleep all the time. And I think that's a huge part of the healing process too, is giving yourself breaks, biting off little chunks, saying, okay, I'm going to deal with this right now. And then I'm going to take a break. And then I'm going to deal with this. And then I'm going to take a break. So you're able to integrate things into your life more easily, um, and more efficiently as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the shadow work is
Mm-hmm.
continual,
Yeah.
lifelong. And that's really cool you said that. I think that's a great point, to take it in bites. um we're dealing with energy, and so yeah, you can get burnout, you can get drained, and um almost turn you off to the aspects of doing the shadow work, and
Mhm.
that can send you into a deeper rut as well.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a good idea. Ultimately, the shadow work is an individual process, but group healing. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about that?
I just think it's like such an important thing in our lives to have a sense of community. Men and women alike, we need to know that we can relate to people on different levels.
Mm,
We need to know that we're not alone in this process, that, you know, we have faults, we've experienced hardships, there's different degrees of trauma. Like, we haven't all experienced the same things in our lives, but it's trauma nonetheless. And to be able to move through a healing process in the community with, you know, other women or with other men is something that's so helpful to your own growth.
yeah.
Of course, that's like preference too, because some people really like to just do the whole process on their own, or to do it like with one other person.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I found that like community was so helpful, and that I could have so many different people sharing what they've been through and their input. And I just found it so much more uplifting to be in a community. And that's why I wanted to create one myself.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are still doing the group meetings and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
that's
right
awesome.
right now I have a sovereign sister circle. It's every other Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And there's no designated teacher. So I'm really just there to hold the space, but it's a great place for us to talk about topics that we don't really feel safe about talking about with our families or with our other friends. And it's where we can come together, get vulnerable, talk about things that, you know, might strike a chord in someone else. But the key of the group is that, you know, we're responsible for our actions and our projections and our emotions. And so, like, if someone says something that's triggering to you, it's your place to take a step back, right?
Yeah,
And it's a
powerful.
beautiful circle.
That's awesome. And that's so important to have that when you can relate to someone on issues. I mean, it gives you the sense of you know, you're not alone, and
Mhm.
you might discover either solutions or just information on how to heal that, you know, differently. So, I mean, community is so important. That's awesome that you're doing that. I think, you know, I'm encouraging men to do that as well, you know, but like the masculine, you know, oh no, no, we can't do that. We can't be open. We can't be emotional, that kind of stuff. But
Men,
the,
it's so important.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, for
Like,
sure.
brotherhood is so important for men to
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I remember I saw a comment in, I think it was the natural law group. One of the guys was like, "Oh, it's females only, women only. Like, what about the men?" It's like, no, dude, you don't understand, man. Like, this is a necessity. It's really healthy to have that dynamic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because there's, you know, there's time and place for everything, and there's going to be times where men talk about very vulnerable things that they need to talk about, and share with one another, and same thing for women. And then it's like we can talk, and then we can come together and we can talk about
yeah.
something else. But it's super important to have those sacred spaces. That's what they are.
Definitely. Yeah, that's all the indigenous cultures. They had that same thing. They had, you know, all the women would get together and the men would get together in their groups, and that's pretty much how it was. And that's extremely powerful and healing and uplifting for sure.
Yeah. Because what our society initially pushes is the lone wolf, right? It is
Mm,
do it yourself, right? We don't live in a community like oriented society. We live in individual houses. None of us know our neighbors unless we've lived in the house for like 20 years. We don't help each other out next door with anything. You know,
yeah.
it is like you get your own job, you pay your own bills, you take care of this on your own, you heal on your own, you go to a therapist. There's no like talking with other people. So that's where we have to break the stigma of I'm alone and I have to do this by myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, culture, it promotes just the ego dynamic and separation so much. You
Mhm.
know, now it's just only communicating, interacting with people on your phone or online. It's, you know, I mean, you're right. People don't talk to their neighbors. I'm sure my neighbors would like to tell me to shut up because I'm just so chatty to them all the time. And it's like, here, I got my veggies are growing. Take some, go for it.
Yeah.
So, and I even put a sign out there that said, you know, take what you need, and nobody took anything. It's like, you know, I was like, come on, take a tomato or something.
Yeah. I
But
went
yeah, no,
over to my neighbor's house
communities.
this summer and I was like, take some cucumbers. Like,
Yeah, that's awesome.
oh.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
that's the mentality that we need, is just coming back into this place where we're supporting one another, we're getting to know each other, you know. Everyone has different things to offer. When we're so secluded, like how can anyone ever connect, you know?
Yeah, especially this day and age with the whole just COVID and the lockdowns and all that bullshit. It's really hitting hard with the separation.
Mhm.
And so it's so important for people to interact, get into their community, and, you know, ultimately for a purpose, for growth and stuff would be excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
um you know, there's gossip circles that, you know, aren't too healthy, but you know, when you're focusing on a powerful dynamic for growth and healing, that does wonders. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's dive into your ebook. um that's amazing. I checked it out and it's great. You nailed everything. I think it's like 26 pages.
Yeah, it's like 23, 26. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. The Natural Law Guidebook. So let's talk about, just give the viewers an explanation about that and like the process.
Yeah, so it's a short and sweet and to the point guidebook about natural law, the principles, the seven principles, and the eighth lost principle. And then some other integrative tools of just, you know, like how we fit in the picture, how we play a role in everything that's happening in the world, and how we can be a part of changing that, like how we can start to step into this place of, you know, taking responsibility for ourselves, working through our wounds, recognizing like the difference between violence and force, all of these different things that we can start to just grasp hold of and lay a new foundation for ourselves on. I was obviously inspired to write this by Mark Passio's work, and by my partner,
Yeah.
but I really wanted to do something that was like very just to the point, um, you know, because the messages are delivered to different people in different ways. And that's the beauty of doing this work, is that each voice speaks to a different group of people. So, you know, for the people who just want to read something really quickly and be done with it and have an understanding of it, that was what I was creating this for. And specifically for people who are just now starting to question things, you know, from everything that's happening in the world. A lot of people that I know personally are just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. It's a good
You know,
opportunity.
something's wrong here, something's off, something's not like as I thought it was. And this is to start to just lead them in a direction of like, this is why everything is happening this way. And this is how you can be a part of the greater change, right?
Yeah.
So it was a fun project to work on. It took me like a couple of weeks to do. And uh, yeah, it was a great thing to put out there. My first thing writing about natural law. So it was very also like educational for me to go into all those different specific avenues and write them down and just remind myself of like, you know, the core of what the importance of these actually are,
Yeah.
and to share them with the world or with a community
That's
of people.
That's awesome. That's the example right there. You're putting the rhetoric in play, the action part, and you're activating yourself to create something. And I think, I mean, right now it's crucial because a lot of people are questioning stuff. Obviously, I think we all have um, that hunch, even if you're not as aware about natural law or anything, you still have a hunch that something's not right. So it's a great opportunity to talk to family and friends And the ebook is a perfect, like you said, short and sweet. You can give it to someone. It's an easy read, and you nail all the information. So that's awesome. And ultimately, this is, as far as natural law teachers, this is the stage that we want to get to.
Mhm.
It's the
Yeah, it's
trivium
just being
process
able
that,
to know the information well enough to translate it to someone else in a fashion where they can understand it.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are at that stage where they understand the information. They've processed it. They just don't know how to get to the rhetoric stage, the action, and create something. So, good job on being the example for that. And so that's awesome. And I forgot what I was gonna say. That's why I keep a pen on me. Um, So yeah, so what are some of the things that you are aspiring to do for the future?
Hmm.
You have any ideas, any plans?
Yeah, so actually, right now I'm working on a 4-week online course. It's called Heal Her, and it's Sacred Body Connection. And so I'm creating this course, right? Because we work through healing in layers, and one of those layers is being able to connect with our body. So I'm creating this 4-week course for women who have struggled with body dysmorphia, eating disorders, like pinching, poking, comparing, weighing, all of these, ways that we relate to our body in a unhelpful and unhealthy way, and to bring them back into this place of empowerment, of understanding that we're not like, our worth is not based on our physical bodies, but we are our bodies. Like, we are every cell, we are every bone, we are every part of our muscle and tissue. Like, that is us. And so if we're not learning how to take care of ourselves in the way that we feed ourselves, and the chemicals that we expose ourselves to, and the environments that we put ourselves in, then we're not going to have like this full true connection with our body to receive messages from it, or to be fully empowered in our full human experience. And this is something that I'm working on right now. I'm going to release it in January, but it also comes from like my personal experience that I've had with like relationship to my body for a long portion of my life, was that I was so disconnected, and I was just so disoriented with relating to my body, that it put me into this spiral place of not being able to hear my intuition,
Mm,
sourcing all of my self-worth in my physical appearance. And it drains you so much of your energy. And I don't think it gets talked about enough with women, is like, how why do we want to disown ourselves? Like, why do we want to change ourselves?
yeah,
Why do we want to do all of these weird surgical procedures, and what do we think it's going to give us, you
yeah.
know yeah, so
That's
that's something that I'm currently working on.
that's awesome. That sounds really cool. Um, I always, when I talk to people, the body is such a huge and important part, and it's ultimately, you have 100% control. You control what you eat, what you drink, exercise, and all that. It's a great place to start activating willpower and strength, and obviously spiritual intelligence. um, that's really cool. That's needed. Looking forward to see how that progress goes on the course.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yes.
Sweet. Um, all right. Well, I think we're going to keep this short and sweet. We're 45 minutes in. Um, so viewers, go to sistersofsovereignty.com. And anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap it up?
Just thank you so much for having me on the show today. For anyone out there who's doing their healing work right now, just keep going, reach out for help if you need it, reach out for community if you need it. Connect with people, because it's so helpful in this day and age. And yeah, I hope to connect with some other women through this interview.
There we go. That's awesome. I love it. Powerful insight. Sistersofsovereignty.com. Go there, check it out. Get the ebook, the Natural Law Guidebook. Check that out. And again, thank you for coming on and being my guest and having this great, amazing conversation.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Y'all take care. Thank you. Remember, willtelltruth.com and seek truth, speak truth. You guys take care. Thank you.